Brexit deal will go under scrutiny today following their announcement at the Conservative Party conference.
In Westminster, they'll be debated by MPs. Meanwhile, European leaders are still considering a detailed response.
The question is whether the Prime Minister's proposals are enough to break the deadlock before the leave date on the 31st of October. Our political correspondent, Jessica Parker,
has a new world champion sprinter this morning after Dina Asher-Smith stormed to a remarkable victory in the women's 200 metres final in Doha.
She is the first British woman to win a major global sprint title ever. Our sports correspondent, Natalie Perks, has been watching the action, sent this report.
Yes.
Just getting us Hill.
That's it. About this. Oh, she's going to be celebrating.
Who has been through some of those emotions in the past with her amazing success. So, yeah, chatting to her a little later on. It's a wonderful moment. You've got to enjoy that moment.
It's absolutely brilliant. It's 7 minutes past 6. Other news to bring you: around 4 million women will hear this morning whether changes made to their state pensions amounted to discrimination.
Women born in the 1950s claim they weren't given enough notice to plan for extra years without their pension when the age was increased from 60 to 65. The government estimates reversing the decision would cost £181 billion. Our personal finance correspondent, Simon Comperts.
When you watch her, when you watch that movement, she is so... I know, it's difficult to imagine someone trying so hard and being relaxed, but she really... Didn't
realise. Academic qualifications.
She's clever too.
Given that she has been... the amount you train to get in those roles from such a young age, I think she got 9 A-star GCSEs, 3 A-grade A-levels, and that was when she was competing in 2014, I think. Maybe was that maybe in the World Championship?
Thanks very much, Carol. Get Brexit done. That was the theme of this year's Conservative Party conference. And yesterday, Boris Johnson set out his plans to do just that. It involved coming up with an alternative to the controversial Irish backstop, an insurance policy to prevent a hard border in the island of Ireland in the event of no deal. How's it going to work? Well, the proposal would see Northern Ireland stick to the EU's strict standards on agriculture, food and goods. It would be known as an all-Ireland regulatory zone. The rest of the UK would be free to set its own rules, which would essentially create a border in the Irish Sea. But Northern Ireland would leave the EU customs union, which is the bloc's tariff-free trading area. And that would require checks in order to collect taxes due on goods. The Prime Minister says this would not require a physical border, as declarations can be completed electronically or remotely. And after all of that, the plan would need to be approved and reviewed every 4 years by the Northern Ireland Assembly, which has been suspended.
The bar is high. The bar is high. It's a beautiful book, actually, and we'll talk to her a little later on about that.
It is 6:31. Good morning. Here's a summary of today's main stories from BBC News. Boris Johnson's plans for a new Brexit deal will go under scrutiny later, one day after they were unveiled at the Conservative Party conference. Captain of the Solheim Cup team, brilliant victory.
You got your vote?
Well, I don't know. Genuinely, I would be torn, but I just think brilliant that we've got so many brilliant personalities that are really engaging people in sport.
So we'll see you later. 6:39 right now.
Boris Johnson's New Deal proposal may have persuaded some previously sceptic Conservative MPs to get behind the Prime Minister. The question is, has he done enough to win crucial support from other parties?
Let's speak now to the shadow Northern Ireland Secretary, Tony Lloyd. Secretary, speak to us from Belfast this morning. We're also, just to let you know, speaking to Stephen Barclay, who's, of course, the Brexit Secretary. That's coming up at 7:40 this morning. Nigel Dodds from the DUP at 8:20. So we're just trying to cover all the bases this morning, give you a sense of where everyone is at.
It is just coming up to 6:45. Thanks for joining us this morning. We're going to talk to Carol now, find out what's happening with the morning's weather. And it's brightened up, Carol. Oh, but not for long, as I see the words there next to you.
That's right, Naga.
6:47 is the time now. Ben is at Manchester Airport for us this morning in rather magnificent surroundings there, Ben. But you're looking in detail this morning at the Thomas Cook employees. After everything that happened, there's an event there which is very important for those looking for work.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So 7 is the time. There's a poetry pharmacy opening today. Any idea what that is?
Well, I'm assuming the idea somehow is that poetry can be good for you and can, you know, help you.
Yes, so no pills are being dispensed, poems are being dispensed. And you're right, the hope is that it's going to improve people's well-being. And Tim...
Form of therapy, doesn't it?
Yeah. Pick a poem. We're talking to Giles Brandreth. He's put a collection of poetry together. I'm going to pick one for you over the next 2 minutes.
He's threatening to read one for us as well. Or even, is he going to write one? I think he's going to write one.
He's going to write one for us. Find out what's happening where you are this morning. We'll see you at 7. Under scrutiny today, following the announcement at the Conservative Party conference.
In Westminster, they'll be debated by MPs. Meanwhile, European leaders are still considering a detailed response.
The question now is whether the Prime Minister's proposals are enough to break the deadlock before the leave date of 31st of October.
I'm speaking to the Brexit Secretary, Stephen Barclay, so we'll find out a little more about what will be happening today and maybe some more detail on the proposals.
Other news to bring you. Britain has a new world champion sprinter this morning. Dina Asher-Smith stormed to a remarkable victory in the women's 200 metres final in Doha.
To put it in some kind of context, she is the first British woman to win a major global sprint title at all. Our sports correspondent Natalie Perks watched
athletics in Doha with Dina Asher-Smith storming to victory in the women's 200 metres final.
Yes, she becomes the first British woman to win a global sprint title ever. She spoke to the BBC.
News. Holly is where everything all began. You're at Dina's former primary school in London, Holly. I bet you've met some characters today. But it has, no, we've shown a picture of outside the studio this morning. The sun is out.
I might go and find myself a window.
Yeah, good. Do you know what?
Cheer
It's
yourself
worth
up.
it, yeah.
Let's try some poetry. That cheers you up as well sometimes.
Oh, I'm not sad.
Good. 7:38. We don't want sad people around, do we? That's not what we want at all. So, we're at Manchester Airport this morning because you'll be well aware of the coverage of Thomas Cook and what happened there. A lot of talk about the holidaymakers, but of course the staff who lost.
Hello, you're watching Breakfast with Charlie States and Naga Munchetty.
At 7:30, here's a summary of this morning's main stories from BBC News. Our top story this morning, Boris Johnson's plans for a new Brexit deal will go under scrutiny today following their announcement at the Conservative Party conference.
In Westminster, they'll be debated by MPs. Meanwhile, European leaders are still considering a detailed response.
A lot of questions whether the Prime Minister's proposals are enough to break the deadlock before the leave date on the 27th. That means it's time to get the news, the travel and the weather where you are. Good morning, it's Thursday, the 3rd of October. Our main story this morning, Boris Johnson's plans for a new Brexit deal will go under scrutiny by MPs at Westminster today.
Meanwhile, European leaders are still considering a detailed response. The question is whether the Prime Minister's proposals are enough to break the deadlock before the leave date, the proposed leave date of 31st of October.
In the last few minutes, the Brexit Secretary, Stephen Barclay, told us the government believes this plan represents the best way to say. We're going to speak to someone who knows a little bit of some of the sentiments, the emotions around winning gold medals. That's the Olympic champion, Jessica Ennis-Hill. She's in Doha. She was watching the race live as it happened last night, speaking to her in about, 5 minutes' time, 3 or 4 minutes' time.
7 minutes past 8 is the time. Other news. Around 4 million women will hear this morning where the changes made to their state pensions amounted to discrimination.
Women born in the 1950s claim they weren't given enough notice to plan for extra years without their pension when the age was increased from 60 to 65. The government estimates reversing the decision will cost £181 billion. Our personal finance correspondent, Simon Gompertz, explains. We watch with interest to see what will happen today.
It's always lovely to talk to Jessica Ennis-Hill, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well,
I think a lot of people straight away will be seeing, as we get to know a new athlete, they're thinking, Jessica Ennis-Hill took on, she was an athlete, pure and simple, and then people embraced her in a whole different way.
Absolutely.
Maybe that's part of the process we're involved in now.
That's what happens when you're a beloved weather presenter as well.
Very similar
Carol,
thing.
Don't you think, Carol?
Peak of their profession and in tip-top condition.
Oh, my goodness, bless you both. I think you must be talking about Matt Taylor.